Well, hello everyone, and welcome to the channel. For those of you who don't know, my name is Leo, and I will be your humble hillbilly host for today. Now, today we are in the tiny little town of Delarm, West Virginia, and I'm standing in the Delarm Cemetery. It's a place that's filled with stories of hard lives and hard endings. Many of the people here died tragic or violent deaths. Others were taken by old sicknesses that swept through the area. Only a handful of these people were lucky enough to reach old age, as near as our research can tell. This ground holds layers of history, grief, and many forgotten names. This is also the cemetery where Asa Harmon McCoy and his wife, Martha Klein McCoy, along with members of her family, lie somewhere here unmarked. Now, for those of you who don't know, that's some people argue is the first death of the Hatfield-McCoy feud, Asa Harmon. But their bodies were moved here when the railroad came through, right over that way, and their original family cemetery was destroyed. Their exact graves are lost to time forever, which is very sad. Over the years, though, many people have confused Asa's wife with Perry Klein's wife, also Martha Klein, who is buried in Pikeville, Kentucky. Now, we've actually been told more than once that we are wrong, and that Martha Klein is buried in Pikeville, Kentucky, but she is not. She is here, somewhere beneath this very ground. Now, this little tiny town of Delarm is where the story of a man named Greley Blankenship begins. Now, Greley Blankenship was a 30-year-old Kentucky mountain man from the Peter Creek, Kentucky area, when his name became tied to one of the most closely watched murder cases to come out of Mingo County during the Great Depression. The case centered on the killing of a man named John Christophone, a 48-year-old relief worker who lived near Matewan, West Virginia. Now, at the time, being a relief worker carried a very specific meaning. During the early 1930s, I should say, relief workers were employed through county and state aid programs to distribute government assistance to families who had lost jobs or income. In coal towns around the area, that aid often meant food, coal, clothing, or limited amounts of cash relief for unemployed miners and their families. Relief workers also handled the eligibility decisions and the paperwork, deciding who qualified for help and who did not. Because the desperation ran so deep and the resources were so scarce, the position could be very tense and very controversial. Relief workers were sometimes viewed with resentment, not because of who they were personally, but because they represented government authority in communities that were struggling to simply survive. Now, John Christophone was killed on September 4th in 1934, not far from here, at a little place called Red Jacket near Matewan, along what was described as a lonely railroad track which pretty much describes all of the railroad tracks through here. But testimony later revealed that John was shot 3 times while pleading with his wife not to leave him and go with Greely to Kentucky. His wife testified that John begged her not to go moments before he was killed. Now, Greely claimed that the shooting was done in self-defense. He also contended that he and Mrs. Christophone had been childhood sweethearts, saying that they had been close 13 years earlier, and stated that he did not know that she was married until the very day of the shooting. Greely said he went there that day to get the woman he believed was his sweetheart, to begin building a life with her. He claimed that the murder was never part of his plans for that day. Greely was convicted in Mingo County in October 1934 and sentenced to die. His execution was set for December 7th, but as the date approached, he admitted that he had no money to appeal. Governor H.G. Kump granted a 1-month reprieve so an appeal could be filed at state expense, while firmly denying any commutation. The delay pushed the execution up to January 7th in 1935. Prison officials said that Greely accepted the news calmly, telling guards that he did not expect any mercy and was indeed prepared to die. On January 4th, the Supreme Court denied his appeal without comment. With no delays left, the sentence stood as is, and the execution moved forward. In the hours leading up to his execution, Greely spent part of the previous day listening to 2 fellow prisoners strum old mountain music on banjos. On the morning of his death, he ate a hearty breakfast of bacon, eggs, potatoes, and toast. About a half an hour before the execution, he requested and got a bowl of ice cream. Before the noose was adjusted, he thanked Warden C.F. McClintock and the guards for the treatment that he had received while in custody. One of the last messages connected to the case came from Judge Beno F. Howard, the very man who had sentenced Greely to hang. The day before his execution, Greely wired the judge, saying that he forgave him and hoped to someday meet him in a better world. Judge Howard acknowledged the message after the execution, replying that his earnest prayer was that in forgiving him, Greely would enter a better world with malice toward none and only kindness and goodwill for all. The judge added that his duty in the case had simply been to follow the mandate of the law. A guard, though, failed to deliver the judge's reply before the execution took place. During the execution, prisoners were locked in their cells at 11:30 a.m. and dinner was delayed until an hour after Greely's death. On the morning of January 7th in 1935, Greely walked calmly into the gallows at the West Virginia State Penitentiary. He showed no signs of nervousness or worry. The hanging was the 65th execution in the 75-year history of the prison and was witnessed by about 50 people. In a brief speech to those present, Greely concluded with the words, "God bless you all." The trap was sprung at exactly 12:02 p.m. Greely was pronounced dead 12 1/2 minutes later by the prison doctor. After the hanging, Greely's body was released from the prison and returned to his former home here in Delarm. The body arrived on Tuesday evening by train and was taken to the home of his parents. From that time until the funeral, residents stated that approximately 2,500 people passed the coffin. Large crowds gathered around the home, with the curious wandering around the property where the body lay. Some accounts even said that the porch was broken by the weight of people. Funeral rites were conducted Thursday afternoon here in Delarm by the Reverend Miller of Peter Creek. He officiated the services. Greely was buried here in the Delarm Cemetery. The funeral and burial drew a very large crowd, with people traveling from Kentucky, West Virginia, and Virginia to attend and watch. There was an unusually large turnout from the Peter Creek area. John Christophone was survived by his widow and 2 children and went into the ground where he became lost to time. With Greely's execution on January 7th in 1935, the legal case came to its end. His name joined the list of men executed at Moundsville in the early 20th century. Today, he is remembered through court records, newspaper columns, and this quiet little cemetery here in Delarm, where tragedy, loss, and forgotten lives lie side by side just beneath the surface of the ground. Now, we brought you guys down here once before. It's been a couple years, not long after we started the channel, about Asa. Of course, we're not here for Asa today, but I was going to kind of look around today and just see exactly what I can find here. I have to ask y'all to excuse me. They're working on the railroad right down there, so there may be a little bit of that going on today, but that's okay. We can deal with that. We can make do. But anyway, like I said, Heather and we came over here once before, not long after we started the channel, looking for Asa's grave. Unfortunately, like I said, it's unmarked and it's been lost to time, which is very much a shame. You know, Asa is very much a historic character as much as anyone else. You know, like I said, he was considered by some to be the first death of the feud. And of course, a lot of people will argue that point, that, you know, it was unrelated to the feud, but still, some say yes. But anyway, while I'm here, I just wanted to tell you guys the story before I did a little bit of walking around here in the weeds. As you can see, it's pretty weedy, but I'm going to look around here and see just exactly what we can see and see if we can't actually find either one, Mr. Blankenship, or just see if any of the family, if we can find any of them here. You never know. It wouldn't be the first time, you know, you get out in a graveyard and find something unexpected. A lot of times you can say, research this person right here while you're updating their records. It will lead you to another very interesting story about this person or someone in their family. So you never know what you're going to find. I've said 1,000 times, you never know who you're going to meet in a cemetery. Very interesting story though, isn't it? very teeny tiny little town called Delarm. And I don't know how well you guys can see, the train tracks come right down here, come around this way, and then go back behind that mountain right over there. This old graveyard where Asa and his wife and the family should be somewhere over there, the original one. Now all of the graves that they found when the railroad came through, when they moved the track, they dug up all of the graves that they could find and moved them over here, including Asa. You can hear the train. We'll let him get to the crossing. There it goes. And you can see the engines, the train cars going up through there. Somewhere along that line, some of those cars right now are on top of the old graveyard as we speak right now. Kind of strange, isn't it? You know, you think you bury someone and you think they're there for eternity. It's not always the case though, is it? Not always. Usually, but not always. Every now and then, progress will step in and change things. But anyway, guys, thank you very much for coming along with me today and hearing my little story. And if any of you are curious about exactly who is in this graveyard and who has stones and what we find today, we'll have that on another video for all of you guys to check out. This is Leo with the Hillbilly Files, out in the middle of a cemetery in a teeny tiny little town in West Virginia called Delarm. We'll see y'all next time. Y'all have a really good day, and Leo out.